What do you think will happen in this story? Comment and don't forget to subscribe to our channel and tell us which city you're watching from. Listen carefully to what I'm about to say. This will be the best story you'll hear this week. If this story moves you, become a premium listener. There are even deeper, more intense and secret romances waiting. Click, become a member now and listen to the best exclusive stories for an affordable price. Access the link in the description or pinned comment. In the imposing mansion in Iztok, one of the most exclusive neighborhoods of Sofia, luxury lived alongside loneliness. The golden rays of the setting sun streamed through the French windows, illuminating the fine wooden furniture and Italian marble floors. In that scene, worthy of a decorating magazine, Maria Petrova, a 32-year-old woman with honey-colored eyes, that carried the weight of a life of struggles, was finishing another exhausting day of work. It had been 6 months since Maria had gotten the job as a cleaning assistant in Stefan Ivanov's mansion, one of Bulgaria's most powerful businessmen. After a complicated divorce, she needed to support her son Nikolai, a shy and observant 9-year-old boy. The job at the mansion paid better than her previous occupations, but required long hours that left her completely exhausted. That Friday, the time was already running beyond the agreed schedule. The housekeeper, Gospodja Vasilieva, a woman with a severe appearance but a soft heart, had allowed Nikolai to stay in the service area while Maria finished polishing the silverware in the main hall. An important meeting would take place at the mansion the following day, and everything needed to be impeccable. "Mom, can I finish my homework here?" "At school, they said I need to turn it in on Monday," Nikolai asked, hugging his math notebook against his chest. His large, curious eyes observed the details of the mansion with fascination. "Yes, son. But stay quiet, okay? If Mr. Ivanov appears, he doesn't like children wandering around the house," Maria answered, trying to hide the fatigue in her voice. Nikolai nodded and settled in the corner of the room, absorbed in his numbers and calculations. He had always been passionate about mathematics, solving advanced problems for his age. Maria was proud of her son, although she feared not being able to provide the education he deserved. The clock already marked almost 9 in the evening when Maria finished her work. Her muscles ached, and the headache that had begun in the middle of the afternoon now throbbed in her temples. When she went to get Nikolai, she found him asleep over his notebook, the pencil still loose between his small fingers. Not wanting to wake him, Maria picked him up in her arms. Despite her fatigue, she managed to balance her sleeping son while gathering his backpack and coat. She needed to wait for the bus that would take her to the peripheral neighborhood where she lived, another hour of travel ahead. As she passed through the main hall, Maria decided to sit for a moment on the marble floor, leaning against the wall. Just 5 minutes to regain her strength, she thought. The cold of the marble contrasted with the warmth of Nikolai's small body against hers. Without realizing it, her heavy eyes closed and fatigue overcame her. Stefan Ivanov was known in the business world as the calculator. At 45, he had transformed the technology company he had inherited from his father into a multinational empire. Tall, with gray hair at his temples and penetrating blue eyes, he maintained an impeccable appearance that matched his reputation for perfectionism and coldness. That night, Stefan returned to the mansion earlier than usual. The meeting with Chinese investors had been cancelled at the last minute, leaving him irritated and with unwanted free time. Upon entering the main hall, his gaze caught something unusual: a woman sitting on the floor, embracing a sleeping child. His first instinct was indignation. Who would this employee be, sleeping on duty? He was about to call the housekeeper when something stopped him. The image of that woman, exhausted to the point of falling asleep sitting up, protectively holding her son, stirred in him a strange sensation. something he hadn't felt in a long time. Instead of calling the housekeeper, Stefan approached silently. The woman's face, even in sleep, showed signs of fatigue and worry. A strand of dark brown hair fell across her forehead, and her hands, even relaxed in sleep, seemed calloused from hard work. That's when he noticed the open notebook beside them. Curious, Stefan bent down to look. They were mathematical equations. Not simple addition or multiplication sums, but advanced algebra problems for a child. Even more surprising were the solutions, meticulously written in childish handwriting, but with reasoning that would impress any teacher. "Who are you?" Stefan murmured to himself, intrigued not only by the evident mathematical talent in that notebook, but by the complete scene that contrasted so much with the luxurious environment around it. It was at that moment that Maria opened her eyes, startled to find her employer's gaze upon her. The immediate fear in her face was like a slap to Stefan's conscience. She tried to get up quickly, still holding Nikolai. "Mr. Ivanov, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to," Maria stammered, the terror of losing her job written all over her face. "Don't get up," said Stefan, with a gentleness that surprised them both. "It's all right." And in that instant, something changed. Perhaps it was the fatigue in her eyes, perhaps the weight of the sleeping child in her arms, or perhaps those mathematical equations solved with such precision by such small hands. For the first time in years, Stefan Ivanov felt his heart hardened by years of relentless negotiations and cold decisions, being touched by something genuinely human. "What is your name?" he asked, his voice stripped of its usual authoritative tone. "Maria, sir, Maria Petrova," she answered, still tense, eyes downcast. "And the boy?" "He's my son, Nikolai." Her hands protectively tightened around the sleeping boy. "Forgive me for bringing him, but I had no one to leave him with today, and he likes mathematics," Stefan interrupted, not as a question but a statement, pointing to the notebook. Maria's eyes lit up for a moment, maternal pride momentarily overcoming fear. "Yes, sir. He's always been good with numbers. At school, the teachers say they've never seen anything like it." Stefan nodded thoughtfully. "Come with me," he finally said, standing up. "You need to rest properly, and we have much to discuss." Maria hesitated, confused by her employer's change in attitude. She was used to seeing him only in glimpses, always austere and distant. This man before her, with eyes that suddenly seemed interested and almost kind, was a stranger. "Don't be afraid," he added, noticing her hesitation. "I think this encounter may change many things, Maria." As she followed him, Maria could not imagine how true those words would prove to be. Fate had woven an unlikely encounter between three people who, despite the abyssal differences in their realities, were about to transform each other's lives in ways none of them could predict. Maria followed Stefan through the corridors of the I mansion, still carrying the sleeping Nikolai. She had never been in this part of the house, reserved exclusively for the owner. They arrived at a more intimate living room, where ostentatious luxury gave way to an elegant but surprisingly welcoming environment. "Please sit down," Stefan indicated, pointing to a soft leather sofa. "Would you like me to call someone to take your son to a room where he can sleep more comfortably?" Maria instinctively held Nikolai tighter against herself. "No, thank you. He's fine here with me." Stefan nodded, understanding her hesitation. He poured a glass of water for her and sat in the armchair opposite. For a few moments, he just observed the woman who carefully adjusted her son on her lap. There was a dignity about her that intrigued him, a silent strength that contrasted with her seemingly fragile situation. "How long have you been working here, Maria?" he finally asked. 6 months, sir." "And I've never noticed you before." It wasn't an accusation, but an observation that seemed to bother him. How can a person and her son go unnoticed in my own home? Maria looked away. The staff are instructed to be discreet, sir, especially when you are at home. Something in that simple answer hit Stefan. How many people worked for him, sustaining the luxury of his daily life without him ever having really looked at them? Tell me about you and your son, he asked, with a gentleness he rarely used. Hesitant at first, Maria began to speak. She told of her difficult divorce 3 years before, when her ex-husband abandoned her with debts and a 6-year-old son to raise. She spoke of the difficulties in finding stable employment as a single mother, of multiple jobs, of sacrifices to ensure Nikolai had at least the basics. Nikolai has always been different, she said, her eyes shining as she looked at her son. From a young age, he showed an insatiable curiosity for numbers. At 4, he was already doing mental calculations that surprised me. At 6, he was solving primary school problems without anyone having taught him. Stefan listened with growing interest. And school? Do they recognize this talent? Maria's smile disappeared. The public school where he studies doesn't have resources for students like him. The teacher tries to help, giving extra problems, but she has 30 students to attend to. She hesitated before continuing. Once, I tried to enroll him in a program for gifted children, but I needed to pay for a psychological assessment that cost more than I earn in a month. As Maria spoke, Nikolai began to wake up, blinking sleepily before realizing where he was. His eyes widened when he recognized the man he had seen only from a distance many times. "Mom," he murmured, confused. "It's all right, son," Maria assured him. "This is Mr. Ivanov, the owner of the house." Stefan smiled, trying to appear less intimidating. "Hello, Nikolai. We were talking about you. Your mother told me you really like mathematics." The boy nodded shyly, clinging to his mother's hand. Stefan stood up and picked up the notebook he had brought with him. "I saw your exercises. They're impressive. Where did you learn to solve equations at that level?" Nikolai looked at his mother as if asking permission to answer. When she nodded encouragingly, he said, "I saw it in some videos on the internet, on the computer at the municipal library. Then I borrowed books." "Do you understand what you're doing or just follow the steps?" The boy frowned, visibly offended. "I understand, sir. I wouldn't memorize something that doesn't make sense." Stefan smiled at the frank response. He opened the notebook to a specific page and pointed to one of the equations. "What you did here is an advanced method. Many adults would have difficulty with this." "It's just faster that way," explained Nikolai, gaining confidence. "It has fewer steps." Stefan exchanged a meaningful look with Maria before asking the boy a question. "If I give you a new problem, could you solve it now?" Nikolai hesitated only for an instant before nodding. Stefan took a paper and pen from his desk and wrote an equation he himself had used in his master's in engineering years ago. He handed it to the boy, who looked at it carefully before taking the pen. Maria watched apprehensively, fearing her son might fail in front of this powerful man. But to her surprise, Nikolai began to work on the problem with complete concentration, his small hand moving confidently across the paper. After a few minutes, he returned the paper to Stefan. "I think that's it, but there are 2 possible answers." Stefan examined the solution, and the surprise on his face was evident. Not only had the boy solved it correctly, but he had identified the dual nature of the answer, something many of his university colleagues would have missed. "Extraordinary," he murmured, looking at Nikolai with new eyes. He turned to Maria. "Your son has a rare gift, Maria. Such talent cannot be wasted." "I know," she replied with a mixture of pride and sadness. "But our circumstances can change. interrupted Stefan, an idea forming in his mind. He observed mother and son for a moment, making a decision that surprised even himself. "I have a proposal for you." At that moment, Gospodja Vasileva, the housekeeper, appeared at the door, clearly alarmed to see the cleaning staff member and her son sitting comfortably with the boss. "Mr. Ivanov, forgive the intrusion. I didn't know you were occupied." "It's all right, Vasileva," replied Stefan with a calmness he rarely showed to the staff. "Actually, I need you to arrange something. Mrs. Petrova and her son will stay in the guest room tonight. It's too late for them to return home." The housekeeper couldn't hide her surprise, but merely nodded. "Immediately, sir." "And Vasileva," added Stefan, "tomorrow morning, I want you to reschedule all my appointments. I have important matters to discuss with Mrs. Petrova." When the housekeeper left, Maria looked at Stefan with a mixture of confusion and distrust. "Mr. Ivanov, I appreciate the kindness, but we don't need to trouble you. We can return to our home." "It's no trouble at all," he assured her, "and tomorrow I want to talk about Nikolai's future. And yours, too." As Vasileva returned to guide them to the guest room, Maria held her son's hand firmly, uncertain of what to expect. The sudden change in her employer's behavior, known for his coldness, made her suspicious. However, she couldn't deny that, for the first time in a long time, she felt a spark of hope. Already in the luxurious guest room, after settling Nikolai, in the king-size bed that seemed to swallow his small body, Maria observed the Sofia night through the window. The city lights twinkled like earthly stars, so close and yet so far from her reality. "What happened, Mom?" asked Nikolai sleepily. "Why is the serious man being nice to us?" Maria smiled, sitting beside her son. "I don't know exactly, my love, but I think he saw something special in you. He seemed sad, even living in such a beautiful house," observed the boy with the typical insight of children. The observation caught Maria by surprise. She had never thought of Stefan Ivanov as someone capable of sadness. In her mind, men like him lived in a separate world, protected by their money and power from the pains common to mortals. "Sometimes, son, people have everything money can buy, but they lack something that no wealth can give." "What?" Maria kissed her son's forehead. "That's something each person needs to discover for themselves." As Nikolai fell asleep, Maria couldn't help feeling a sense of vertigo at the sudden change in their lives. What could a man like Stefan Ivanov want with them? What would this mentioned proposal be? And more importantly, would it be safe to trust someone known for his calculatedness in business? On the other side of the mansion, Stefan contemplated the city horizon from his private office, an untouched glass of whiskey in his hand. The image of Maria and Nikolai wouldn't leave his mind. Something in that scene, the exhausted mother protecting her talented son, both fighting against circumstances, had awakened memories he had spent years trying to suppress. "What am I doing?" he murmured to himself. It wasn't like him to act on impulse or be carried away by emotions. As a businessman, each of his decisions was meticulously calculated to maximize gains and minimize risks. But that night, for the first time in many years, Stefan Ivanov was making a decision based not on the cold logic of numbers, but on something deeper and almost forgotten, his own humanity. The next morning brought a sky of intense blue over Sofia, a contrast to the usual pollution that covered the city. Maria woke up disoriented. The soft mattress and Egyptian cotton sheets were unfamiliar sensations for her body accustomed to simplicity. For a moment, she thought she was dreaming, until the memories of the previous night returned in flashes. The extreme fatigue, falling asleep on the floor of the hall, the encounter with Stefan Ivanov. Nikolai was already awake, timidly exploring the luxurious room. His eyes sparkled at the details that many would overlook: the geometric pattern of the wallpaper, the perfect symmetry of the furniture, the precise angles of the picture frames. "Mom, did you see that the ceiling has exactly 36 details in each section? And if you multiply by the number of sections, it gives 144, which is 12 squared," he exclaimed enthusiastically. Maria smiled, sitting up in bed. "You counted all that while I was sleeping?" "Oh, it was more interesting than sleeping," the boy replied simply. A gentle knock on the door interrupted the moment. Gospodja Vasileva entered, bringing a tray with a complete breakfast: fresh fruits, various breads, juices, coffee, and hot chocolate. "Good morning," said the housekeeper with formal politeness. "Mr. Ivanov asked that you take breakfast at your leisure. He will await you in the library in an hour." She placed the tray on a table by the window and added, "I also brought some clothes that might fit you. They are new." Maria then noticed a pile of carefully folded clothes on an armchair. "But this isn't necessary. We have our own clothes." The housekeeper just offered a polite smile. "These are Mr. Ivanov's orders. He would like you to be comfortable for today's conversation." When Vasileva left, Maria examined the clothes. For Nikolai, sets of shirts and pants that seemed to have been made to measure. For her, simple but elegant dresses made of fabric she could never afford on her salary. "How did he know our sizes?" she murmured, intrigued. "Maybe he has many powers, like in the movies," suggested Nikolai, already attacking an apple from the tray. An hour later, dressed in the new clothes that surprisingly fit perfectly, Maria and Nikolai were led by a butler to the mansion's library. The environment was impressive. Walls lined with shelves that went from floor to ceiling, filled with leather-bound books. A spiral staircase led to a mezzanine that surrounded the entire space, allowing access to the upper shelves. Stefan Ivanov was sitting behind an ancient dark wood desk, consulting some documents. Seeing them, he immediately stood up. Maria noticed that he looked different, more accessible without his usual severe expression. "Good morning. I hope you rested well," he said, indicating the armchairs in front of the desk. "How did you feel wearing the new clothes?" "They're very beautiful, thank you," replied Maria cautiously while helping Nikolai to sit. "But I confess I'm confused by all this, Mr. Ivanov." Stefan nodded, understanding. "I imagine so. The situation is unusual for all of us." He paused, as if carefully choosing his words. "Maria, last night, seeing you with your son, something changed in me. It was as if suddenly I could see beyond the surface of my own life." He stood up, walking to one of the shelves. "This library was my father's favorite place. He grew up poor, you know, built everything from scratch. When I was a child, he always said that knowledge was the only possession that no one could take from you." He turned to look at Nikolai, who was fascinated by the books around him. "Your son reminds me of myself at his age." Maria frowned, surprised. "Did you also like mathematics?" "I was obsessed," confessed Stefan with a slight smile. "Numbers always made more sense to me than people. I was fortunate to have parents who recognized that talent and could invest in it." He returned to the desk and picked up a folder. "I have a proposal for you. Actually, 2 proposals." He opened the folder, revealing brochures and documents. "First, I would like to offer a full scholarship for Nikolai at the Copernic Institute." Maria caught her breath. The Copernic Institute was one of the most prestigious schools in Sofia, known for its special program for gifted children. The scholarship would cover all costs: tuition, materials, uniform, transportation, and food. Continued Stefan, it would also include specialized psycho-pedagogical support and participation in national and international mathematics Olympiads. Nikolai, who had been quiet until then, couldn't contain his excitement. Mathematics Olympiads? Really? Stefan smiled at the boy. Yes, really. I believe you have the potential to excel. Maria felt dizzy with the proposal. It was everything she had dreamed of for her son, but could never provide. However, her life experience had made her cautious. Why? She asked directly. Why would you do this for us? We're practically strangers. The question hung in the air for a few moments. Stefan looked away to a framed photograph on his desk, an older man next to a teenage Stefan, both smiling with medals on their chests. My father died 5 years ago, he finally said. In the last years of his life, he frequently accused me of having become someone he no longer recognized. He said I had forgotten our origins, our values. His voice carried a melancholy that surprised Maria. Last night, seeing you and your son, I understood what he meant. Stefan took a deep breath before continuing. As for the second proposal, I noticed that you work far beyond your hours, Maria. I also learned, through the housekeeper, that you have training in visual arts. Maria blushed slightly. Yes, I went to art college, but I never managed to work in the field. After Nikolai was born, I had to look for more stable jobs. I would like to offer you a new position here at the mansion, continued Stefan. My art collection needs cataloging and professional care. The salary would be 3 times higher than your current one, with flexible hours so you can accompany Nikolai's studies. The proposal was so unexpected that Maria was speechless. It was as if someone had heard each of her silent prayers of the last few years. Mr. Ivanov, I don't know what to say, she finally stammered. Say yes, he replied simply. It's not charity, Maria. It's an opportunity that benefits all of us. Nikolai will have the education he deserves. You'll be able to work in your field of training, and he hesitated. I'll have the chance to do something meaningful. Nikolai, who had been attentively observing the conversation, intervened. Does this mean we'll continue coming here, Mom? Can I use this library? Stefan smiled at the boy. Not only can you, but you should. A mind like yours needs to be constantly fed. Maria still hesitated, torn between gratitude for the incredible opportunity and the instinctive fear of accepting something that seemed too good to be true. I need to think, she finally said. It's an important decision. I understand, nodded Stefan. But I ask that you don't take too long. The school year at the Copernic Institute begins in 2 weeks, and we would need to start the procedures immediately. At that moment, Stefan's cell phone rang. He checked the screen with an expression of annoyance. I need to take this call. Please, feel free to explore the library in the meantime. I'll be back in a few minutes. When Stefan left, Maria allowed herself to breathe deeply. Nikolai had already found the mathematics section and was leafing through a book with a wonderstruck expression. Mom, look at this. There are books about prime numbers, fractal geometry, game theory. Seeing her son's genuine joy, Maria felt tears forming in her eyes. How could she deny him this opportunity? But at the same time, how could she accept something so grand from an almost stranger? While Nikolai explored the books, Maria walked to Stefan's desk, observing the personal objects that revealed facets of the man she had never imagined. Besides the photo with his father, there was a miniature space rocket, some medals in a glass box, and a small painting that caught her attention. It was a simple watercolor depicting a sunset. It wasn't a technical masterpiece, but it conveyed genuine emotion. In the lower corner, an almost childish signature, to Daddy, with love, Sophia. He has a daughter, murmured Maria, surprised. She had never heard of family beyond the deceased father. Had, said Stefan's voice behind her. Maria turned, embarrassed at being caught snooping. "I'm sorry, I didn't mean to." "It's all right," he assured her, approaching and picking up the small painting. "Sophia would be 12 years old now. She and my wife Elena were in a car accident 7 years ago." The revelation hit Maria like a blow. Suddenly, many things made sense. The evident loneliness in the huge mansion, the coldness for which Stefan was known, and now this sudden empathy for a brilliant boy and his struggling mother. "I'm sorry," she said with sincerity. Stefan placed the painting carefully back in its place. "Sophia was also special, a born artist like you and passionate about challenges, like your son." He looked at Nikolai, absorbed in the books. "When I saw you last night, it was as if the universe was giving me a second chance, not to replace what I lost, but to honor their memory by doing something good." The honesty of that confession dissipated Maria's last doubts. It wasn't pity or a momentary whim that motivated Stefan, but something deeper and more genuine. "We accept your proposals, Mr. Ivanov," she finally said, "and I promise we won't disappoint you." "Stefan," he corrected, extending his hand. "Considering everything, I think we can dispense with formalities." When their hands touched in a firm handshake, neither could predict how that simple moment would be the first step of an extraordinary journey that would transform not only their lives, but those of many other people. 3 months had passed since that morning in the library. The Sophia autumn covered the city with a palette of orange tones, and the lives of Maria and Nikolai had transformed in ways that would have seemed impossible before. Nikolai was flourishing at the Copernic Institute. Initially shy among his new classmates, he soon found his place in the advanced mathematics and science classes. His teachers did not spare praise for his quick reasoning and his ability to find innovative solutions to complex problems. In just 2 weeks, he had been invited to the school's Olympic team, preparing for national competitions. As for Maria, adapting to the new position required a more complex process. Years working in functions that had nothing to do with her training had shaken her confidence in her artistic abilities. Now responsible for Stefan's valuable art collection, she alternated between moments of excitement and insecurity. The collection was impressive. Works by Bulgarian masters like Vladimir Dimitrov, Zlatyu Boyadziev, and Ivan Milev shared space with internationally acclaimed artists. Cataloging, researching, and preserving each piece was a meticulous job that gradually reconnected Maria with her passion for visual arts. That Friday afternoon, Maria was working in the studio that Stefan had ordered prepared for her in one of the sunny wings of the mansion. The space, with large windows and first-class equipment, was more than she had ever dreamed of having. She was finalizing the cataloging of a series of prints when Stefan appeared at the door. "May I come in?" he asked, something he always did, respecting that space as her territory. "Of course," replied Maria, carefully storing the prints she was examining. "I've finished cataloging the Stoylov collection. They're extraordinary pieces." Stefan approached, observing Maria's meticulous notes. Over the past few months, a mutual respect had developed between them. They weren't exactly friends, but there was a comfortable cordiality that had replaced the employer-employee relationship. "Your work has been impeccable," commented Stefan. "Actually, I came to talk about that. I received an invitation to lend some pieces of the collection for an exhibition at the National Art Gallery. I'd like you to coordinate everything." Maria's eyes widened. The National Art Gallery was one of the country's most important cultural institutions. "Me? But I've never done something of this magnitude." "You are perfectly capable," affirmed Stefan. "Besides, it would be an opportunity to connect with curators and other professionals in the art world." There was a pause as Maria absorbed the proposal. Stefan seemed to want to say something more, his normally confident posture showing a rare hesitation. "There's something else," he finally said. "I've noticed that you don't just use this space for cataloging work." Maria felt her face heat up. In recent weeks, when she finished her official tasks, she sometimes allowed herself to use the studio materials to create her own works, something she hadn't done seriously since college. "I'm sorry," she hastened to say. "I should have asked permission to use the materials for personal work." "I'm not complaining," interrupted Stefan with a smile. "I'm intrigued. I saw your work stored in that folder." He pointed to a large folder leaning in the corner of the studio. "You have remarkable talent, Maria. Why did you never mention it?" Maria lowered her eyes, uncomfortable. "They're just experiments, nothing serious." "I disagree," replied Stefan, walking to the folder and picking it up. "May I?" After a moment of hesitation, Maria nodded. Stefan opened the folder and began to examine the works. Mixed media paintings that combined figurative and abstract elements, portraying peripheral urban scenes with a raw and moving beauty. Women at bus stops at dawn, children playing in narrow alleys, elderly people contemplating the horizon of buildings. Each image captured moments of dignity and hope amid difficulties. "This is extraordinary," murmured Stefan, observing every detail. "You capture something that many acclaimed artists try and fail to, the true soul of people." Maria didn't know how to respond. Those works were deeply personal, created in the few free hours she had over the years, often using improvised materials, because she couldn't afford the appropriate ones. "They're just memories," she finally said. "Scenes from my neighborhood, people I've known, moments that touched me." "Genuine art always comes from a true place," replied Stefan, still absorbed in the images. He stopped at a specific painting, a woman sitting on the floor of a luxurious environment, embracing a sleeping child. Although the faces were only suggested, it was clearly a representation of her and Nikolai on the night Stefan had found them. Their gazes met, a silent understanding passing between them. "Maria," said Stefan seriously, "these works need to be seen. You need to exhibit." She shook her head, laughing nervously. "That's absurd. Who would be interested in the paintings of a cleaning assistant turned cataloger?" "Your story only makes your work more fascinating," argued Stefan. "But regardless of that, the quality speaks for itself. I know Marta Popova, director of the New Talents Gallery. I'll arrange a meeting." Before Maria could protest, Stefan's cell phone rang. He answered quickly, his expression changing to concern. "I understand. I'll be there." "In 15 minutes." He hung up and looked at Maria with urgency. "I need to go to the Copernic Institute. There's been an incident with Nikolai." Maria's heart raced. "What happened? Is he hurt?" "Don't worry, he's physically fine," assured Stefan. "Apparently there was a discussion with another student. The principal wants to see us immediately." "See? Us?" repeated Maria, confused. "Yes, they asked that we both attend." Stefan was already picking up his car keys. "Let's go together." During the journey in Stefan's Audi, Maria couldn't contain her anxiety. Nikolai had never been one to get into trouble. Always quiet and focused on his books, he avoided conflicts at all costs. "I can't imagine Nikolai fighting," she commented, wringing her hands in her lap. "Gifted children often face social challenges," replied Stefan, skillfully maneuvering through traffic. "The intellectual difference can create friction." Arriving at the Copernic Institute, a modern educational complex with large green areas, they were immediately led to the principal's office. Nikolai was sitting in a chair, staring fixedly at the floor. Next to him, a larger boy with an arrogant expression, accompanied by a couple of privileged appearance. The principal, Dr. Elitsa Mihailova, a middle-aged woman with a grave expression, stood up to receive them. "Mr. Ivanov, Mrs. Petrova, thank you for coming so quickly." Maria rushed to her son, kneeling before him. "Nikolai, what happened?" Before the boy could answer, the other boy's father intervened. "What happened was that your son verbally assaulted mine. We demand a formal retraction and severe disciplinary measures." "Calm down, Mr. Nikolov," asked the principal. "Let's hear both sides." Stefan, who was observing the scene with attention, placed a protective hand on Nikolai's shoulder. "Speak, Nikolai. What happened?" The boy raised his eyes, visibly disturbed. "We were in math class. The teacher called me to solve a problem on the board, and I did it in a different way than he had taught." He paused, swallowing hard. "When I returned to my place, Victor said I was a slum kid putting on airs who should go back to the hole I came from." Maria felt as if she had been punched in the stomach. The Nikolov couple exchanged uncomfortable looks. "And what did you answer?" asked Stefan gently. "I said he might have all the money in the world, but his brain was underdeveloped, and that statistically, considering his current performance, he would probably end up wasting his father's fortune and depending on people like me to solve his problems in the future." A tense silence fell over the room. Stefan had to make a visible effort not to smile, while Mrs. Nikolova made an indignant sound. "You see," exclaimed Mr. Nikolov, "this is unacceptable. My son may have been rude, but the response was calculated to publicly humiliate him." The principal sighed deeply. "The Copernic Institute does not tolerate any kind of discrimination, Mr. Nikolov. Your son made a clearly prejudiced comment based on Nikolai's socio-economic origin. But that doesn't justify," the man began. "Nor does it justify Nikolai's behavior," completed the principal. "Both erred, and both will be disciplined appropriately. Victor will be suspended for 2 days due to the discriminatory nature of his comment. Nikolai will receive a formal warning." Maria, still processing what had happened, felt a mixture of pride in her son's intelligence and concern about the incident. "Nikolai, you know we don't solve problems like this," she said softly. The boy nodded, repentant. "I'm sorry, Mom." It was then that Stefan stepped forward, his presence dominating the room. "Dr. Mihailova, I agree with the disciplinary measures. However, I would like to propose something constructive from this incident." Everyone looked at him with curiosity. "The Institute has a diversity and inclusion program, correct?" he continued. "I suggest that both Nikolai and Victor participate in a joint project on the theme, perhaps something relating mathematics and social inequality in Bulgaria. It would be a learning opportunity for both." The principal considered the proposal with interest. "That's an excellent idea, Mr. Ivanov." The Nikolovs, perceiving the change in the dynamics of the meeting, quickly agreed, eager to end the matter. After a few more details were settled, everyone was released. On the way back to the mansion, Nikolai remained silent in the back seat of the car. Maria turned to look at him. "Are you all right, son?" "Yes," he answered in a low voice. "I'm just thinking, we don't really belong in that place, do we?" "Why do you say that?" asked Stefan, observing the boy through the rearview mirror. "Because we're different. We don't have money like them. We don't live in big houses. We don't travel to Disney during vacations." Maria felt a tightness in her chest, but before she could respond, Stefan intervened. "Nikolai, let me tell you a secret. No one really belongs anywhere until they decide to create their own space. People like Victor try to define who belongs, or not based on arbitrary criteria like money or last name. But true belonging comes from what we build with our mind and our character." The boy reflected on the words. "How did you manage to belong then?" Stefan smiled slightly. "I'm still trying every day, just like your mother." Maria met Stefan's gaze in the rearview mirror, a silent understanding passing between them. At that moment, she realized that the invisible barriers that still existed, not just between them, but between each and their own dreams, were slowly beginning to dissolve. Back at the mansion, as Nikolai withdrew to do his homework, Stefan detained Maria in the hallway. About what we were discussing before the call from the school. I arranged a meeting with Marta Popova for next week. She will see your works. Stefan, I don't know if I'm ready for this, hesitated Maria. You're more than ready, he affirmed with conviction. The world needs to see what you see, Maria. The colors you perceive where others see only shadows. That night, in the small apartment in the Lozanets neighborhood where Stefan had insisted on moving them, a place much more comfortable and close to Nikolai's school, Maria stayed up late, contemplating the new possibilities opening before her. With brush in hand and a blank canvas, she began to give form to a new painting, a composition that merged the cold luxury of the mansion with the human warmth that was beginning to fill it, vibrant colors emerging from the shadows. The buzz of the new Talents Gallery filled the elegant environment in the heart of Oberishta. It was a Friday night, and Maria Petrova's exhibition, Peripheral Gazes, was celebrating its opening night. 6 months had passed since the incident at Nikolai's school, and life continued to transform at an accelerated pace. The meeting with Marta Popova, the gallery director, had been a turning point. The experienced curator had immediately recognized Maria's singular talent, the ability to capture human dignity in everyday circumstances, the vibrant palette that found beauty in the most unlikely scenarios. After seeing her portfolio, Marta not only offered the exhibition, but became an enthusiastic mentor, guiding Maria through the intricacies of the art world. Now dressed in an elegant red dress, a gift from Stefan for the occasion, Maria circulated among the guests, still in disbelief at seeing her creations on the white walls of the prestigious gallery. Art critics, collectors, established artists, and curious onlookers examined her works, commenting on technique and sensitivity with evident admiration. "Your mother looks stunning," commented Stefan to Nikolai, both observing Maria from a distance, as she conversed with an influential critic from the Dnevnik newspaper. Nikolai, now almost 10 years old and a few centimeters taller, nodded proudly. "She's always been like that inside. Now everyone can see." Stefan smiled at the insightful observation. In recent months, he had developed a genuine affection for the boy, who somehow filled a void he had carried since losing Sophia. It wasn't a replacement. He knew nothing would replace his daughter, but a new connection that made the days more meaningful. "Mr. Ivanov," a female voice interrupted his thoughts. It was Marta Popova, elegant in her black suit, holding a champagne flute. "What a keen vision you had in discovering Maria. She's a phenomenon. We've already sold 7 works, and the exhibition has barely begun." "The merit is all hers," replied Stefan with sincerity. "I merely offered the space for her talent to flourish." "Modesty doesn't suit you," provoked Marta with a sly smile. "But I must say you're different, more human." Before Stefan could respond, a group of people approached to greet him. As the main sponsor of the exhibition, his presence attracted attention, especially because the notorious calculator rarely attended cultural events. On the other side of the gallery, Maria was trying to maintain her composure while the art critic asked her incisive questions about her technique and inspiration. "Your approach has echoes of Bulgarian social expressionism, but with a very particular contemporary language," he observed, adjusting his glasses while examining a canvas that showed women talking at a communal laundry tank. How did you develop this aesthetic being self-taught after graduation? Maria took a deep breath before answering. Marta had advised her never to diminish her trajectory, even when feeling insecure. Actually, life was my art school. When you work 3 jobs to support a child, you observe things that would normally go unnoticed. The solidarity among people who have almost nothing, the dignity maintained in impossible circumstances. She paused, finding the right words. I didn't have access to expensive materials or time for elaborate experimentation. That forced me to be direct and honest in each brushstroke. The critic nodded, genuinely impressed. It's precisely that authenticity that makes your work so impactful. Congratulations, Mrs. Petrova. I'll be following your career with great interest. When he moved away, Maria allowed herself a moment to breathe. She felt a presence beside her and turned to find Stefan, who offered her a glass of sparkling water. He knew she didn't drink alcohol. How are you feeling? He asked. Like I'm dreaming, she confessed, accepting the drink. None of this seems real. A year ago, I was cleaning your house, Stefan. Now I'm here with all these people analyzing my soul on the walls. You were always destined for this moment, he replied with conviction. You just needed the opportunity that was denied to you for so long. Their gazes met for a prolonged instant, a subtle tension hanging between them. In recent months, as they worked together and shared more of their lives, something beyond friendship had begun to bloom. Neither mentioned or acted on these feelings, but they were there, growing silently. Mom! Nikolai's enthusiastic voice broke the moment. That man in the blue suit just bought your favorite painting, the one of the woman at the bus stop. Maria smiled at her son, stroking his hair. Is that true? Well, I hope he takes good care of her. He said he's going to put it in the main room of his office in Doktorska Gradina so everyone can see. The night progressed with conversations, sales, and compliments. Around 10, when the crowd began to thin, Stefan approached Maria again. There's someone I'd like you to meet, he said, leading her to an elderly man in a wheelchair, accompanied by a nurse. This is Mikhail Angelov, my mentor, and one of the country's greatest art collectors. The gentleman, who must have been over 80, had lively and perceptive eyes that contrasted with his frail body. He extended a trembling hand to Maria. Miss Petrova, what a pleasure to meet you. Your art made me leave my house after 2 years of seclusion. That, in itself, is a remarkable feat. Maria gently squeezed his hand, touched by the gesture. It's an honor, Mr. Angelov. Stefan has told me a lot about you, continued the elderly man. But even his enthusiastic words didn't do justice to your talent. I would like to acquire the complete Mothers of Bulgaria series. Maria blinked, astonished. The series, composed of 7 large canvases portraying mothers from different social and ethnic realities of the country, was the highlight of the exhibition. And the most expensive part. Mikhail, intervened Stefan, you don't need to. Don't tell me what I need or don't need, young man, cut off the elderly man with good humor. I'm still the one who decides where to invest my money, and I believe that Miss Petrova will be one of the great names of Bulgarian art in the coming decades. The night ended in a celebration atmosphere. The exhibition had been a resounding success, with almost all works sold and extremely positive reviews. When the last guests departed, only Maria, Nikolai, Stefan, and Marta remained in the gallery. A toast to the new phenomenon of Bulgarian art, proposed Marta, raising her glass. Maria blushed, raising her sparkling water, a toast to new opportunities and friends who become family. Her eyes met Stefan's over the glass, and again that invisible current seemed to connect them. The next day, while Maria was still processing the events of the previous night, she received an unexpected call. It was Gospodja Vasileva, the housekeeper of Stefan's mansion. "Maria, thank God I managed to reach you. It's Mr. Ivanov." The urgent tone made Maria's heart tighten. What happened? He collapsed during the morning meeting. The ambulance just took him to Sveta Sofia Hospital. He was asking for you before losing consciousness. Maria felt her blood freeze. "I'm going there now." After arranging for Nikolai to stay with the neighbor, Maria took a taxi to the hospital. During the entire journey, images of Stefan, pale and unconscious, tormented her mind. How had she not noticed signs that something was wrong? He had seemed perfectly healthy the night before. At the hospital, she was informed that Stefan was undergoing tests. She had to insist a lot to obtain any information, since she wasn't a relative. Finally, a more understanding nurse explained that he had suffered a collapse due to extreme stress and possible exhaustion. "He works too much, doesn't he?" asked the nurse. "Non-stop," confirmed Maria, "day and night." 3 hours later, she was allowed to visit him. She found Stefan in a private room, connected to monitors, looking vulnerable in a way she had never seen him before. "Hi," he said with a weak voice when he saw her. "Sorry for the scare." Maria approached the bed, instinctively taking his hand. "What happened? Why didn't you tell me you weren't feeling well?" "I didn't want to ruin your special night," he replied. "Besides, I thought it was just fatigue." The doctor who entered next brought news that changed everything. Stefan hadn't suffered just from stress. Preliminary tests indicated a heart problem that required immediate attention. Surgery would be necessary, followed by a long recovery period and significant lifestyle changes. "No intense work, no stress, no long trips for the next few months," explained the doctor. "You will need special care and constant monitoring." When they were alone again, Stefan seemed dejected, not by the physical condition, but by the prospect of forced inactivity. "How will I manage the company lying in a bed?" he murmured, more to himself than to Maria. "You have a competent team," she reminded him, "and technology to work remotely when you're better." "It's not just that." He hesitated, as if deciding whether to reveal something important. "We're in the midst of a crucial negotiation with Chinese investors. If I show any sign of weakness, they might back out. Years of work lost." Maria squeezed his hand. "You're not alone in this, Stefan. I'll help you." He looked at her, surprised. "How?" "I don't know exactly yet, but we'll find a solution together." She paused, taking a deep breath. "You changed my life and Nikolai's. You gave us a chance when no one else would. Now it's our turn to give back." In the days that followed, while Stefan underwent surgery and began recovery, Maria organized a complex operation. With his guidance and help from the competent executive assistant Anna Dimitrova, she managed to maintain the appearance of normalcy in business. Video conferences were held from the hospital with virtual backgrounds that didn't reveal where Stefan really was. Documents went back and forth, decisions were made, and gradually Maria began to understand the business empire he had built. 2 weeks after the surgery, when Stefan was discharged, the inevitable question came: where would he stay during recovery? His mansion, though luxurious, was too large and impersonal for someone who needed constant care. "Come to our home," proposed Maria, surprising them both with the suggestion. "The apartment has a guest room, and we'll be nearby to help with whatever you need." "I can't impose this on you," protested Stefan. "I can hire full-time nurses." "Nurses aren't family," she replied simply, "and you need a home now, not just medical care." That's how Stefan Ivanov, the powerful businessman known as the Calculator, ended up temporarily moving to the 3-bedroom apartment in Lausanne. Nikolai gave up his room for the convalescent, excited at the prospect of sleeping on the sofa, bed in the living room for a few weeks, As the days passed, a routine was established. Maria coordinated the medical care and managed Stefan's work commitments, while Nikolai, always curious, helped with small tasks and frequently entertained the businessman with mathematical challenges and conversations about the stars, an interest they discovered they shared. One night, while Nikolai was already asleep and Maria was organizing the next day's medications, Stefan observed her from the armchair where he was sitting. "Why are you doing all this for me, Maria?" he suddenly asked. She looked at him, surprised by the direct question. "You would do the same for me." "I'm not so sure," he replied with honesty. "Before meeting you and Nikolai, I didn't really care about anyone. I lived for work, to conquer more, prove more, as if that could fill the void that Elena and Sophia left." Maria sat on the edge of the bed, close to him. "And now? Now I understand what my father was trying to tell me before he died. That I had lost myself somewhere along the way." His eyes met hers. "You brought me back, Maria. You and Nikolai." The moment was charged with emotion. Maria felt her heart racing, aware that they were on the verge of something that would change everything between them. But before she could respond, the phone rang, breaking the spell. It was Anna Dimitrova, Stefan's assistant, with urgent news. The Chinese investors were insisting on a face-to-face meeting, suspicious of the constant video conferences. They wanted to see Stefan in person before signing the final contract. "Tell them I'll be there," affirmed Stefan, ignoring Maria's protests about his condition. "You can't do that," she exclaimed after he hung up. "The doctor was clear about the risks." "I have no choice," he replied, determined. "This deal represents the future of thousands of jobs. I can't put everything at risk because of my health." Maria stared at him, recognizing the stubborn expression she had seen before. "Then you won't go alone. I'm going with you." The meeting was scheduled for 3 days from now. As Stefan prepared, forcing himself beyond the limits recommended by the doctors, Maria realized that something deeper was at stake. It wasn't just a business deal, but the identity of a man who for a long time had defined himself solely by his professional success. Watching him fall asleep after an exhausting day of preparation, Maria made a decision. She wouldn't allow Stefan to risk his recovery, even if it meant confronting his stubbornness. An idea was beginning to form in her mind. Risky, but potentially saving. The day of the meeting with the Chinese investors dawned with a fine rain. Over Sophia, in the Lozenets apartment, the tension was palpable. Stefan, pale but determined, was adjusting his tie in front of the mirror, while Maria observed him with evident concern. "You barely slept last night," she commented, handing him the morning medications with a glass of water. "Are you sure you're in condition to do this?" "I have no choice," he replied, swallowing the pills. An involuntary grimace of pain crossed his face when he made a sudden movement. "This deal means a lot to the company." Maria bit her lip, undecided. In the last 2 days, while helping Stefan review documents and prepare presentations, she had been developing an alternative plan, but she hadn't had the courage to share it, fearing his reaction. "What if?" she began hesitantly. "What if you didn't need to go personally?" Stefan looked at her through the mirror's reflection. "We've already discussed this. The investors made it clear that they want to see me in person. They suspect something is wrong due to the constant video conferences." "Yes, but what if you sent someone you completely trust? Someone who knows the details of the deal and could represent you adequately?" "Who?" he asked, turning to face her. "Anna Dimitrova knows the operation, but doesn't have the authority. To close a deal of this size, Marine is in Singapore. There's no one else with sufficient knowledge available." Maria took a deep breath, gathering courage. "I could go." A perplexed silence followed her declaration. Stefan stared at her as if she had suggested something completely absurd. "You?" His voice mixed surprise and incredulity. "Maria. Without meaning to offend, but you have no experience in corporate negotiations. This is a $500 million deal with extremely demanding Chinese executives." "I know that," she replied, maintaining her composure, "but I've spent the last 3 weeks following every detail of the process. I know the numbers, I've read all the reports, I know what the critical points of the negotiation are." Stefan shook his head in disbelief. "It's not that simple. There are nuances, strategies, years of relationship that you can explain to me during the journey to the meeting place," she insisted. "Besides, Anna Dimitrova will be there to assist me with the technical aspects. I would just be the face of the negotiation, your personal representative." "It's too risky," he argued, but Maria noticed a hesitation in his voice. The pain and fatigue were clearly affecting him more than he admitted. "Riskier than you suffering a collapse in the middle of the meeting?" she asked directly. "The doctors were clear, Stefan. Your heart is still recovering. Excessive effort can cause serious complications." The words hung between them, heavy with the truth that Stefan was reluctant to accept. He walked slowly to the window, observing the city misted by rain. "Why would you do this for me?" he finally asked, without turning. Maria approached, stopping a few steps from him. "For the same reason you helped me when I needed it most, because I care." Something in the sincerity of her voice made Stefan turn. Their gazes met, and at that moment, the barriers they still maintained between themselves seemed to diminish. "I'm afraid," he admitted in a low voice. "Not of the meeting itself, but of what it means to give up control. For so long, the company has been all I had." "I know," she responded softly, "but now you have more. You have me and Nikolai. You have a life beyond contracts and meetings." Light touch on the door interrupted the moment. It was Nikolai, already dressed for school, his backpack on his shoulders. "Uncle Stefan, are you really going to the meeting? The doctor said you need to rest." The boy spoke with the frankness typical of children, but his tone revealed genuine concern. Stefan looked at the boy who, in recent months, had become so important in his life. Then at Maria, whose determination and strength had repeatedly surprised him. "Actually," he finally said, "your mother will go in my place." Nikolai's eyes widened. "Really? But she's not a businesswoman." "No," agreed Stefan with a small smile, "but she's the most capable and courageous person I know. And sometimes, Nikolai, that's more important than any diploma or experience." 2 hours later, at the imposing headquarters of Ivanov Technology in the Pete Kiosheta district, Maria was facing her own nervousness while being briefed by the executive assistant, Anna Dimitrova. Dressed in an elegant women's suit, another gift from Stefan, she felt like an actress about to enter the stage for the most important role of her life. "The representatives of Honglei Tech are traditional, but not inflexible," explained Anna Dimitrova, handing her a folder with the latest details. "Mr. Zhang, who leads the delegation, especially values honesty. If there's something you don't know how to answer, it's better to admit it and promise a later response than to try to improvise." Maria nodded, absorbing each piece of information like a sponge. In the inner pocket of her blazer, she carried a small, almost invisible earpiece. Stefan would follow the meeting remotely, ready to guide her at critical moments. "They've arrived," announced Anna Dimitrova, checking her cell phone. "They're coming up now." Taking a deep breath, Maria positioned herself. "Let's go." The Chinese delegation consisted of 5 executives, led by the serious Mr. Zhang. When they entered the meeting room, their looks revealed surprise at seeing an unknown woman in place of Stefan Ivanov. "Welcome to Ivanov Technology," greeted Maria in fluent English, extending her hand. "I'm Maria Petrova, Mr. Ivanov's personal representative. He regrets not being able to be present due to unavoidable commitments, but has entrusted me with full powers to finalize our agreement." Mr. Zhang accepted the greeting politely, but his expression revealed distrust. "We expected to deal directly with Mr. Ivanov. He guaranteed us his presence." "I understand your concern," replied Maria calmly. "Mr. Ivanov had a last-minute unavoidable matter, but I assure you I am completely familiar with all the details of the negotiation and authorized to make final decisions." After exchanges of business cards and formal introductions, everyone sat down. Maria could feel the skepticism in the room, especially from Mr. Zhang, who observed her with analytical attention. "Miss Petrova," he began, "we at Honglei Tech value long-term relationships. Mr. Ivanov personally guaranteed us certain conditions. How can we be sure that you truly represent his interests?" It was the question Maria feared, but for which she was prepared. In her ear, Stefan's voice murmured, "Show the letter." "Mr. Zhang," she replied, removing an envelope from the folder, "I perfectly understand your concern. Mr. Ivanov anticipated this and prepared this document for you." She handed over the sealed envelope, which contained a handwritten letter from Stefan, confirming not only Maria's authority for the negotiation, but also personal details from their last meeting in Shanghai, information that only Stefan could know. While Mr. Zhang read the letter, Maria continued, "Additionally, I've prepared a detailed presentation addressing the latest questions raised by your technical team about system integration." In the following 2 hours, Maria conducted the meeting with a mixture of technical knowledge, carefully studied in recent weeks, and a natural ability to connect with people. Where Stefan would have been direct and pragmatic, she brought a personal touch, perceiving the unspoken concerns of the Chinese executives and addressing them with sensitivity. At a crucial moment, when the discussion about intellectual property threatened to stall progress, Stefan's voice suggested in her ear, "Offer the cross-licensing agreement we prepared as a contingency." But Maria, sensing the Chinese's true concern, took a different path. "Mr. Zhang, I believe the core of the issue isn't just intellectual property itself, but the guarantee that both companies can continue innovating without unnecessary restrictions. What would you propose if you were in Mr. Ivanov's place?" The approach surprised everyone, including Stefan, who murmured a concerned, "What are you doing?" in her ear. But the effect was immediate. Mr. Zhang, treated as an equal partner whose opinion was valued, and not just as an adversary in a negotiation, opened up to a more honest dialogue. "In China, we value harmony in business," he replied after a thoughtful pause. "Perhaps a joint innovation committee with representatives from both companies could oversee the development of new technologies derived from the partnership." It was a solution that no one had considered before, not even Stefan in his extensive preparations. Maria smiled, recognizing the wisdom of the proposal. "I think Mr. Ivanov would greatly appreciate this collaborative approach," she replied. "We can detail the structure of this committee as part of the final agreement." By the end of the meeting, the atmosphere had completely transformed. What had begun with distrust had evolved into mutual respect. When the Chinese executive said, "Goodbye," Mr. Zhang did something unexpected. He invited Maria to an informal dinner that night. "It would be an honor to get to know you better, Miss Petrova. We rarely meet negotiators who understand so well the balance between firmness and flexibility." After the delegation's departure, Maria finally relaxed in her chair, exhausted but euphoric. Anna Dimitrova looked at her with undisguised admiration. "You were incredible. I've never seen Mr. Zhang so receptive." In the apartment, Stefan anxiously awaited Maria's return. When she finally arrived, he received her at the door, his face tense with expectation. "So, how was it?" "I lost the connection in the last few minutes." "We signed the preliminary memorandum," she announced, displaying the document. "The final version will be completed tomorrow, and they've invited our technical team for a visit to their facilities in China next month." The relief on Stefan's face was visible. "You did it. You really did it." "We did it," she corrected. "Your guidance was fundamental." He shook his head, amazed. "You went beyond guidance, Maria. That approach with the Joint Innovation Committee. It was brilliant. I would never have thought of that." Maria smiled, taking off the high-heeled shoes that bothered her after hours of use. "Maybe because you're so used to seeing negotiations as battles to be won. I saw it as a conversation between people who deep down want the same thing." Stefan observed her with new eyes. This woman who, less than a year ago, cleaned his house, had just closed the biggest international deal for his company, using an approach that he, with all his experience, hadn't considered. "You should lead our international negotiations department," he said. Half joking, half serious. Maria laughed, sitting on the sofa. "I think I'll stick with my art, thank you, although it was a fascinating experience." Stefan sat beside her, closer than usual. "You know what occurred to me today while listening to you conduct that meeting with such naturalness?" "What?" "That I've never found anyone like you. Someone who can see beyond appearances, who has the courage to risk everything for those they care about." He paused, his eyes fixed on hers. "Someone who makes me want to be a better person." Maria's heart raced. His proximity, the words, the moment, everything seemed intensely intimate. "Stefan, you don't need to say anything now," he interrupted gently. "I just want you to know that what I feel for you goes far beyond gratitude or admiration." Before Maria could respond, the door opened and Nikolai entered, accompanied by the neighbor, who had picked him up from school. "Mom, how was the meeting? Did you talk with the Chinese? Did they understand you? Did you sign the contract?" The questions came in rapid fire, typical of his insatiable curiosity. Maria smiled, exchanging a complicit look with Stefan. "It all went well, son, but it's a long story. Why don't I prepare a snack for the three of us and tell you everything?" While she moved about in the kitchen preparing sandwiches and juice, Maria reflected on the extraordinary transformation of her life. From cleaning assistant to international negotiator, from unknown artist to new promise of plastic arts. And now this feeling blossoming between her and Stefan, something she had never imagined possible. From across the room, Stefan observed Maria and Nikolai talking animatedly about the day. For the first time in many years, he felt truly at peace. The company, which for so long had been the center of his existence, now shared space with something much more precious, a family he had found when he least expected it. "And now that you've helped Uncle Stefan with the Chinese, you're going back to painting, right?" asked Nikolai, biting into his sandwich. "Of course," replied Maria, looking at Stefan. "I still have many stories to tell through my art. And I'm sure they'll be extraordinary stories," completed Stefan, his gaze conveying much more than his words could express. That night, after Nikolai fell asleep, Maria found Stefan on the apartment's balcony, contemplating the illuminated city. Without words, she stood beside him, their hands meeting naturally. The future was uncertain, with many challenges ahead, but one thing was clear: none of them would face these challenges alone again. 1 year had passed since the meeting with the Chinese investors. Spring in Sofia brought an air of renewal, with blooming linden trees, punctuating the urban landscape with intense green. In Borisova Gradina Park, hundreds of people gathered for the inauguration of the New Talents Cultural Center, a space dedicated to emerging artists from peripheral communities. Under the huge white tent set up for the occasion, authorities, businessmen, artists, and residents from various regions of the city awaited the beginning of the ceremony. On stage, a banner displayed the logo of the Ivanov Foundation for Support of Arts and Education, illustrated with strokes reminiscent of one of Maria Petrova's most famous paintings. Backstage, Maria nervously adjusted the collar of her navy blue dress. As the main speaker of the event, she felt the weight of responsibility. Her life had drastically transformed in the last 18 months, and now she was about to begin a new chapter. "You're going to rock," said Nikolai, now almost 11 years old, adjusting the bow tie that complemented his grey suit. The boy had grown not only in stature, but in confidence. He had recently won the gold medal in the Bulgarian Mathematics Olympiad and been accepted into a special mentoring program with professors from Sofia University. "Thank you, son," smiled Maria, stroking his hair. "Are you sure you've memorized your part?" "Memorized and improved," he replied with a mischievous smile. "I added some statistics about the economic impact of the project." Maria shook her head, amused. Even at just 11 years old, Nikolai already demonstrated a sophisticated understanding of social and economic issues, the result of long conversations with Stefan and the diverse experiences that his new life provided. "Just don't overdo it with the numbers. Remember that not everyone gets as excited about statistics as you and Stefan." The mention of the name made her eyes automatically seek the tall, elegant figure conversing with authorities near the stage. Stefan Ivanov, completely recovered from his heart problems, seemed younger and more energetic than ever. The transformation wasn't just physical, but deep and essential. After his recovery, Stefan had surprised the business world by announcing a radical restructuring at Ivanov Technology. He delegated the executive presidency to a trusted team and assumed the position of chairman of the board, dedicating a large part of his time to the newly created foundation that bore his name. The Ivanov Foundation was born from a casual conversation between him, Maria, and Nikolai during a dinner 6 months after the meeting with the Chinese. Nikolai had commented about an extremely talented classmate in programming who couldn't participate in an international championship due to lack of resources. "It's unfair," the boy had observed with the raw honesty of children. "He's much better than me at programming, but he can't show his talent because his parents don't have money for the registration and travel." That simple comment had ignited an idea that quickly transformed into an ambitious project. The foundation had begun by funding scholarships for talented low-income children, but soon expanded its scope to include support programs for emerging artists, mainly those from peripheral communities. The cultural center they were inaugurating today was the first in a series planned for different regions of Sofia, offering space for exhibitions, workshops, presentations, and professional training in artistic areas. 5 minutes until we begin, announced Anna Dimitrova, now executive director of the foundation. Everyone ready? Maria took a deep breath, feeling a firm and gentle hand rest on her shoulder. She turned to find Stefan's warm gaze. Nervous? He asked, adjusting a strand of hair that had escaped from Maria's elegant bun. A little, she admitted. I never thought I would be here doing this. I can't imagine a more suitable person, he replied. His gaze dropped to the delicate engagement ring that sparkled on Maria's left hand. They had gotten engaged 3 months ago in an intimate ceremony with only Nikolai, a few close friends, and Gospodja Vasileva, who cried more than everyone. A murmur indicated that the authorities were beginning to take their places on stage. The moment had arrived. "We're going to make history today," said Stefan, gently kissing Maria's forehead before going to his place. Nikolai gave his mother one last hug before positioning himself. "Good luck, Mom. You deserve all of this." When Maria finally ascended the stage under warm applause, she felt an overwhelming emotion. Before her were familiar and unknown faces, united by the same purpose. In the front row, she saw Marta Popova, the curator who had believed in her talent, Mikhail Angelov, the elderly collector who had become a mentor and friend, artists from various communities who would participate in the inaugural program of the center. After protocol, thanks, and the presentation of the project partners, the time came for Maria to share her story. With a firm voice that gained confidence with each word, she began. "Less than 2 years ago, I was a cleaning assistant in the mansion of the man who is now at my side as a partner in life and dreams. My son and I lived a reality common to millions of Bulgarians: hard work, scarce opportunities, wasted talents not for lack of capacity, but for lack of open doors." The audience listened in absolute silence, captivated by the raw honesty of her words. What changed our story wasn't just the generosity of a privileged person, although that was the catalyst. She briefly looked at Stefan, who was observing her with admiration. What really transformed our lives was recognition. Someone looked beyond my function, beyond the circumstances, and saw a human being with potential, saw a brilliant boy who deserved adequate education, saw an artist where others saw only a cleaner. Maria paused, letting her words be absorbed. This center we inaugurate today is not about charity. It's about recognition. It's about opening doors and building bridges between worlds that coexist in the same city but rarely truly meet. In the sequence, she explained the structure of the center and the programs that would be implemented. Artistic residencies, professional workshops, rotating exhibitions, scholarships and research grants. She presented numbers and goals, interspersing concrete data with personal stories of the first beneficiaries. "Now," she said, approaching the end, "I would like to call someone very special to present a fundamental aspect of our project, the Young Mathematicians program." Nikolai ascended the stage with the confident posture he had developed in recent months, after overcoming the initial shyness that had accompanied him for years. With surprising fluency for his age, he explained how the program would identify mathematical talents in public schools, offering not just scholarships, but personalized monitoring and integration with universities. "Mathematics isn't just about numbers," he concluded, looking directly at Stefan. "It's about finding creative solutions to complex problems, exactly as we did with our own lives." When Nikolai returned to his place, under enthusiastic applause, Maria took the microphone again for the conclusion. "Many ask me if I feel like a fairy tale character. The answer is no. Fairy tales involve magic and impossible coincidences. Our story is deeply human, made of meaningful encounters, mutual recognition, and a lot of work." She paused, her gaze sweeping over the diverse audience. The true miracle wasn't a billionaire helping an employee and her son. The miracle was a man allowing himself to be transformed by empathy, a woman finding courage to show her talent to the world, a boy overcoming social barriers to develop his potential, and now the greatest transformation of all, using our privileges and talents to open paths for others. Stefan joined her at the center of the stage, followed by Nikolai. Together, they represented not just a family in formation, but a symbol of possibilities. "I officially declare the New Talents Cultural Center inaugurated," announced Maria as a cloth was removed, revealing a commemorative plaque. The audience erupted in applause. Journalists fired flashes, capturing the moment for the next day's news. As the authorities approached for formal congratulations, Stefan whispered in Maria's ear, "You saved me, you know? Not just during my illness, but from the empty person I had become." She smiled, squeezing his hand. "We saved each other. That's how it works." The ceremony was followed by a guided tour of the center's facilities, where works by artists from Sofia's peripheries were displayed on the freshly painted walls. Among them, a special series by Maria stood out: portraits of invisible workers, doormen, street cleaners, delivery people, domestic employees, portrayed with dignity and strength, revealing the beauty and humanity behind frequently ignored functions. At the cocktail party that closed the event, while Nikolai charmed university professors with his theories about mathematics applied to social issues, Maria and Stefan found a moment of privacy in a corner of the hall. "I have something to tell you," she said with a special sparkle in her eyes. "I wanted to wait for the right moment." Stefan observed her, intrigued. "What is it?" "We're going to need an extra room in the new apartment," she replied, gently placing her hand on her still flat stomach. "For about 7 months from now." The shock and joy on Stefan's face were instantaneous. "Are you sure? We're going to have a baby?" Maria nodded, teary-eyed. "I confirmed yesterday. I wanted to be sure before telling you." Stefan embraced her carefully, as if she were made of the most precious material in the world. "Does Nikolai know yet?" "Not yet. I thought we could tell him together, tonight." The emotion on Stefan's face was indescribable, a mixture of happiness, fear, and hope. At 46, he would receive a second chance at fatherhood, something he had never imagined possible after losing Sofia. "I think our son will be radiant with the idea of being an older brother," he commented, discreetly wiping away a tear. "Our son," repeated Maria, the phrase carrying a deep meaning. Although the formal adoption process of Nikolai by Stefan was underway, in practice, they had been a complete family for a long time. The rest of the night passed in an atmosphere of celebration and hope. The New Talents Cultural Center represented not just an ambitious social project, but a symbol of the personal transformation of all involved. As he observed Maria and Nikolai animatedly conversing with a group of young artists from the Mladost district, Stefan reflected on the extraordinary journey of the last 18 months. From the cold loneliness of his mansion to the rich tapestry of meaningful relationships that now formed his life. From the obsession with work and material success to the understanding that true value lay in human connections and the positive impact he could generate. The foundation had already benefited more than 200 families in its first year of operation, and the plans for the future were even more ambitious. The model would be replicated in other Bulgarian cities, creating a network of opportunities for talents that otherwise would remain invisible. When the night came to an end and they finally returned to the spacious apartment in Boyana, where they had moved 3 months before, Nikolai finally received the news about the new family member who would arrive. "That's amazing!" he exclaimed, his eyes shining. "I already know I'm going to teach him to play chess and solve differential equations before learning to read." Maria laughed, tousling her son's hair. "Let's take one step at a time, okay? First, we need to think of names." "If it's a girl," suggested Nikolai thoughtfully, "she could be called Sofia, like Uncle Stefan's daughter who passed away." The silence that followed was charged with emotion. Stefan looked at the boy with surprise and gratitude. "You wouldn't mind?" he gently asked. Nikolai shook his head. It would be a way to honor her memory, wouldn't it? And I'm sure she would be happy to know that you found each other and are building something new and special. Maria observed the exchange between the two, amazed at her son's sensitivity and maturity. In so many ways, Nikolai had been the catalyst for everything. His extraordinary intelligence had caught Stefan's attention on that fateful night. His need for adequate education had initiated the transformation in their lives. And now, his deep understanding of others' emotions continued to surprise her. Later, when Nikolai had already fallen asleep, Maria and Stefan sat on the apartment's balcony, contemplating the illuminated city. Sofia, with all its contrasts, inequalities, and beauties, stretched before them like a vast field of possibilities. "What are you thinking about?" asked Stefan, noticing Maria's distant look. "About how unpredictable life is," she replied, resting her head on his shoulder. "That night, when I fell asleep from exhaustion on the floor of your mansion, I could never have imagined where we would be today." "Do you believe in destiny?" he asked, intertwining his fingers with hers. Maria reflected for a moment. "I believe in meaningful encounters, in people who enter our lives at the right moment, for reasons we don't always immediately understand. Like a lonely businessman and an artist disguised as a cleaner," he completed with a soft smile. "Exactly." She turned to face him. "You know, what impresses me most about our story, it wasn't just you who helped us. We also saved you in a way." "You gave me much more than I could ever repay," confirmed Stefan. "You reminded me what it is to be truly human." On the horizon, the city, lights twinkled like earthly stars, each representing lives, stories, possibilities. The new Talents Cultural Center was just the beginning. Together, they were building not just a family, but a legacy of transformation that would extend far beyond their own lives. "To our family," said Stefan, symbolically raising his teacup. "Present and future." "To our family," echoed Maria, feeling the warmth of the life growing inside her, "and to all those whose lives we'll touch through our work." The night breeze carried the perfume of the jasmine that Maria had planted on the balcony, a constant reminder that beauty could flourish in the most unexpected places.